the Rick and Morty people made a new game. Now, as you know, I wasn't the biggest fan of their last attempt, but I promise I didn't want to hold it against this new outing. Especially because instead of a VR, fixed perspective hack and slash game that was ported to non-VR systems, we have an FPS game built from the ground up to be played by normal people, where your guns are a sentient alien and they talk to you while you shoot bad guys. Very new and original. So, was the team able to get it together? Or does this game fall into the same potholes that Trover did? Let's discuss. High on Life really hits the ground running. The tutorial and intro to the game is this meta game-in-a-game moment that I thought was really funny and set the stage really well for the game to come. Interestingly, after this you get to select your character for some reason. I don't know why, because you will literally never see your character ever again. I don't think it changes anything. I don't know why they put that in the game. They didn't even really make a joke about it. It's just there. Immediately afterwards, Earth is invaded by aliens that want to take humans and use them as drugs. Luckily for you, you find the first of 4 talking guns that you will unlock during the course of the game, fight off the invaders, and steal a ride on their ship to an alien planet. From here you become a bounty hunter and go on an epic quest to kill all the alien gang members that are trafficking humans and save the planet. The premise is simple, but is played pretty straight, especially when you compare it to Trover, and I actually really appreciated that. Unlike with Trover, the story and characters are actually allowed some room to breathe here, which results in a much more engaging narrative. Yes, there's still a lot of jokes peppered in, but the main story moments feel scripted rather than loosely improv'd. And that was a big problem I had with Trover. There was an extreme overusage of that improv-style humor that Rick and Morty is famous for. Like I said in that review, I do enjoy that humor, but I thought it overwhelmed the game in Trover. Here, however, it's used well, and I didn't think overused. When the story or character developments needed to happen, they went with a much more scripted approach, and I thought the game really benefited a lot from that. No, the story is nothing amazing or astounding, but it's cohesive, and it's engaging. Overall, the humor is really solid. I found myself chuckling at a lot of the bits and jokes throughout the game. It was able to make me laugh all the way to the final boss. And I think that's impressive considering this game clocks in at around 10 hours. By comparison, I was bored of Trover after like an hour to 90 minutes. I really want to stress too that the core humor and comedic style of the game is really unchanged from Trover or Rick and Morty. It's just that the execution and balance of it with the story and the rest of the game feels a lot better than it was in Trover. The gameplay itself was actually the most surprising thing to me about this game, because it was fun. Each of the 4 guns you unlock have alternate fire modes that allow for some unique gameplay, and each of the guns is technically different in what they're doing. You have a pistol, shotgun, needler type gun, and they all do different things and serve different purposes. You also unlock advanced movement abilities, dashes, power slides, and this all makes combat feel frantic but slick and easily controllable at the same time. I did find the game pretty easy. I played on the hardest difficulty and never felt like I was being challenged outside of maybe 1 or 2 boss fights. But at the same time, I don't think they set out to make a challenging shooter here. The combat is much more than serviceable for this kind of a game and never felt tedious. The only major complaint I have about the gunplay is the weapon balance itself. The guns kind of suck. The pistol that you start with always felt like the strongest gun and the only option, and I rarely found myself using the other 3 guns that you unlock. Especially the shotgun. It has a 3-round magazine to begin with, and yet it felt like I couldn't even kill enemies with 1 shot. What is the point of that? Sure, you can purchase upgrades for more capacity and damage, but it never felt like those put enough oomph into those other guns to get them on the same level as that starting pistol. And that is a shame because the guns are unique and do attempt to serve unique purposes, especially when you consider their alternate fire modes as well. Now maybe this was less of an issue on the lower difficulty levels, maybe they just made enemies too much of bullet sponges on hard, but it is something worth considering. Overall, I was pleasantly surprised by High on Life. I thought it was an entertaining, solid shooter game that looks quite nice and has some real funny, laugh-out-loud moments. If you're really into the game too, there are some light Metroidvania elements to it. All of the levels can be returned to if you want to hunt down all of the different collectibles in the area once you unlock future guns and traversal abilities. I didn't bother with that because really, who cares? There was no benefit that I saw to doing it, but you can do it. Additionally, they actually paid for the licensing rights to like 5 entire full-length movies that you can watch in the game for whatever reason. The best part of that, though, is you can actually, they also got the Red Letter Media guys to provide commentary for one of the movies, kind of in a Mystery Science Theater style, which is fantastic if you're a fan of theirs. I don't know that I would use that to justify the game's price, but it is a nice bonus to the gameplay itself. The game is fairly short. Like I said, I beat it in around 9 to 10 hours, and it just doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't feel like a full-priced game. It's hard to describe, but I played it because it came out on Game Pass, and I think this is the perfect game for Game Pass. Good enough that it makes you feel like your monthly subscription is worth it. It's a game that's really worth it, and really hits that. I would not have bought this game normally, but because it's on Game Pass, I'm glad that I played it, kind of feeling. As a game, it doesn't really do enough to stand on its own. If you're a fan of Rick and Morty's humor, you will love this game. If you're not, I'm not necessarily sure that this is going to do anything to change your mind, but there is still a fairly enjoyable shooter experience underneath. And if you're curious, I think it's worth giving a shot. For a final rating, I would give the presentation a 4 out of 5, the story a 2.5 out of 5, the gameplay a 3.5 out of 5, for a final rating of a 3.75 out of 5. For value, I would say this is the perfect Game Pass game. Buy a month subscription to Game Pass, play through this game, and a couple others in that time. But what do you think? Is Trover a better game than this? Am I just crazy? Is Rick and Morty just not funny? Let me know in the comments below, and I will see you all with the next video.